Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Crushing Land. Happy to be with you here again today, discussing another topic that is relevant to our land investing, to our real estate investing businesses. And this is actually kind of a funny topic that we're going to discuss today. Uh, Funny in that it came up in that a student asked me about it and actually happened to me this week as well itself. And so I'm going to give you guys a little bit on my story and what I did, what I've done in the past, and how to look at things based on what's going on with the property. And the question that we're discussing today and that came up is, what do we do with a piece of property that we discover actually is not vacant? It has a structure on it. The seller may say that it's vacant, or it may have gotten on the vacant list somehow, but it just isn't vacant. And how do we handle that? And so in our case, I'll give you guys a little bit of background on the deal that we're doing. We had a piece of property that we put under contract. We actually put a few different properties under contract with one seller. And we're basically going through our due diligence on these. And when we were looking at them originally, just to make an offer, everything appeared vacant. We found out afterwards in one of the properties, looking at it closer, that it actually had a structure on it. In fact, it had a mobile home on it. And that mobile home was abandoned for the last 22 years. So it's been sitting there, disconnected from water, disconnected from sewer, and just deteriorating on that piece of property. And so in reality, there was zero value to be had with that property. But at the same time, we really didn't want to take a chance of losing the deal for a single kind of junk property. And so what we did was we looked at it. We basically discounted that property down to next to nothing. And basically, we had somebody go out. We had them take pictures of the property just so people could see exactly what they were getting with that mobile home there, and then put the property out for sale at a very low price, basically just trying to get rid of that one out of the package that we were buying. Did that strategy work? Well, immediately that day, we had multiple people interested in that property and had a cash offer signed within a couple of hours. And so, yes, it did work. And so in that case, we had just moved that property, moved on from it, and didn't take any risk. And you may be saying, well, what is the risk, right? It's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. But there is some chance of liability, right? With that, I mean, something could happen. Somebody could go into it. Somebody could get hurt. There is some different potential. And because the property in itself wasn't worth that much, it's a really low-end piece of property that was kind of a throw-in in the deal. It really wasn't worth taking any extra risk with. So we're kind of looking at it. We're mitigating our risk. We're saying, what's the best decision that we can make with this particular property? And we go from there. Now, is that the only solution that you have? And the answer is no. And we haven't done that over all the years. I mean, because a lot of it depends on what the value of the property is. And if the structure that's on it is legitimately not worth anything, or worth very little, then we're going to treat the property as vacant land. And so at that point, it's, do we just take the risk with the structure on it and buy it as is and sell it as is, as we did in this case? Do we do something else as far as having the structure removed? If the property is worth substantially more and it doesn't cost that much to get it removed, you could do that. It costs a few $1,000s to get a mobile home removed. So you could have somebody come out and do that. We've had the fire department go out and burn down structures. They use them as training. Now, obviously, you're left with debris at that point, but there's no risk with that there, right? It's just a pile of debris, and obviously, you can have somebody go out and clean that up for you as well. So there's a few different ways that you can go about removing the structure or dealing with the structure if there's no value. Now, what if there is value? That's obviously something that does come up. It doesn't come up all that often, but it does come up time to time. My business partner just had one that actually had one with a mobile home on it, and the mobile home actually had value. So what do we do in those cases? And we've heard people say, well, you just treat everything like it's vacant, and you basically say that the structure is not worth anything, and you minimalize that down and you make the offer accordingly. And you can do that, but the problem with that is, what happens if the structure is worth $50,000 or $100,000 and they're willing to take a discount, but they're not going to take $5,000 for the property because that's all the property's worth. It's just a junk little thing, but it's got something on the value. So you've got to balance that out. And there's a few different things that you can do in a case like that. right? Obviously, if you are sitting there and saying, I am only going to be a land investor, that's all I'm going to do. I don't want to take on any structures. I don't want to do any flipping. I don't want to do any rehabbing. I don't want to do anything with this. You could just move on, right? You could just say, I'm not even going to take that on. But obviously, you could be leaving money on the table doing that. So that's not necessarily the best strategy, even if you don't want to take on these projects. In reality, what you should be doing in that case is trying to get a referral. You could be finding somebody that does take on these things, looking for them, advertising that property, and then letting them take over it. Because obviously you're selling it as is with that on it. And you're saying, well, I'm only a land investor. That's true. But you can double close any structure out there. So if you're getting a deal with your end buyer, with your initial buyer at X price, and you know it's worth substantially more than that, but you don't want to do anything with it, you can obviously just flip it as it is, not rehab it, not do anything, not even worry about the structure. Just say, this is the way it is, and let the next person take it on, and it's going to be their thing to fix. It's going to be their thing to flip over, their thing to rehab, their thing to do whatever they want with in the long run. You're just moving it along. So you could be doing that where you're basically trying to still double close it. Or if you really don't even want to go that far with it, like I said, you could do just a referral fee. You could find somebody that's interested and they could pay you for bringing them that deal. And even if you only make a few $1,000s out of it, who cares, right? Because you weren't involved at all. And now they're going directly to your seller and they're purchasing that property and you're getting something out of it because of that. So a couple different things that you can do if there's a structure on the property. And obviously, if you want to get into that arena, and if the property does make sense and you're saying, hey, I'm going to diversify a little bit. I don't mind having some rentals. I don't mind having something with a house. I don't mind this. I don't mind that. If the property, when they come across our desk, because they do, then you might look at that and say, you know what, I'm going to take this one on. We've done that. My business partner, Genius, has done it even more than us. And then we have, students with us that have done it even more regularly as that happens. So that's an option as well as you're diversifying your portfolio. So the thing is, you really got to look at it case by case. And I will say that the vast majority of times that there's something on the property, when there is a structure of some sort on the property, the vast majority of times that structure is really not worth much. And so we do discount it down as if it's not even there. Like the example that I gave of the mobile home that was abandoned for the last 22 years. Really very little value, not worth trying to do anything with to improve it or make it, because there really wasn't any upside for us doing that. And so you have to take it in stride like that. And that's kind of a lot. We had a property once that was very similar, where the person started to build and literally all they had that was there was the foundation. We sold that property as is. And you may say, well, the foundation adds value, which it does, because it lets the person that's going to buy it not have to put that foundation in. But the problem is, because the foundation is already there, in that case, they have to obviously have their floor plan designed to fit that foundation that's already there. So it is a plus to that buyer that wants to do that, but at the same time, you're limiting your buyer pool to that type of person that's willing to do that, to buy that property that fits. So there's a structure that's there. Literally, it was just a foundation, but we did sell that property and found a buyer that wanted to use that foundation that was there and build their floor plan on that. And that being the case, again, that really, we didn't add any value to it, because yes, it added some value, but again, we had to have a very specific buyer. So we didn't put any value towards it and basically still just sold it as vacant land, like we did with the abandoned mobile home. And so that's what you're going to come across most of the time doing this business. And the reason for that is because of the filtering parameters that we do at the very beginning. Yes, we leave some improvement values in there, but they're very low. And so when you leave in very low improvement values, it really only allows for things that don't have any value, right? It's just certain things that are left there. And more times than not, it's not structures. It's things that were put in there. Somebody may have put in a well. Somebody may have put in a septic tank. We just did a property that there was a septic left on it. It was abandoned. So who knows if it works or anything like that. But there's some value on it because of that. Sometimes people have fenced properties. There's different things like that. And those are considered improvements. And so they bring up the value. But very, very rarely is it actually a structure. And when it is a structure, the vast majority of the time, it is something that really just has no value. And we take it in stride with that, and we move it accordingly based on what we see there. And again, like for example, this deal here with the abandoned mobile home, because of the low value, because of the situation with the liability issue and all of that, we said, no, we're not even going to take this on. Let's just double close it along with the whole package. We're going to buy the whole package and we're going to sell that one property the exact same day, and it's going to be somebody else's. The deal that I talked about where we had the foundation that was sitting there, that really isn't a liability issue. So we bought that one and waited for the right buyer, but we still viewed it only as vacant land, and that still worked for us. So you just got to take it case by case. Structures aren't the end of the world. Sometimes it can actually turn into a very good thing for you, depending on what happens there. But you don't want to just run away from them because you see it there. There's different things that you can do. And when you do come across the one that actually has some value, very rarely, but when you do come across the one that actually has some real value, then you can decide what you want to do. Do you want to just simply refer this to somebody else? Do you still want to sell it just basically as is and double close and only use that idea and just move on because you don't want to take any extra risk? Or do you want to diversify your portfolio? Do you want to look at maybe doing a rehab? Do you want to maybe look at doing a rental, whatever it may be? That's completely up to you, but different things that you can look at when you find a structure on your vacant land. So thanks for joining us for this episode of Crushing Land, and we'll catch you next week.